My sister used the baby shower I organized for her to humiliate me about my infertility, but they didn't know I was pregnant at the time. 2 months ago, my husband Jason and I received the most beautiful surprise. We found out we were expecting a baby. You might wonder why this is so important. The reason is that over the last 2 years, we've had a tough journey trying to start a family. Getting pregnant wasn't easy at all. At one point, I did get pregnant, but unfortunately I had a miscarriage. After that loss, we decided to stop actively trying to have a baby. We didn't feel defeated, it just seemed like the universe wasn't ready for us to have one. Or at least, not right then. So we decided to leave things in the universe's hands and focus on other parts of our lives. But in the end, the universe showed us it had a plan for us, just not on the timeline we expected. 2 months ago, I woke up feeling a bit off. I felt heavier than usual and the nausea hit me pretty hard, like the classic morning sickness you always hear about. At first, I thought it might just be a cold or something I ate, but then a little thought crept in, could I be pregnant? I decided to take a pregnancy test just to be sure. When I saw the positive result, it was such a huge shock. I couldn't believe what I was seeing because we had already resigned ourselves to the idea that it wouldn't happen. Jason and I were overwhelmed with joy. We were smiling, crying, and just soaking in the news. Since then, we haven't stopped talking about it. There's so much to plan and we're thrilled that at last our dream is coming true. Even though we're super excited, we decided to keep the news just between us for now, since it's still very early in the pregnancy, only 2 months. We want to be cautious. We've made the mistake in the past of telling people, only to later suffer another miscarriage. It's so hard not only to go through that, but to have to tell others who already knew you were pregnant. As for family, Jason isn't in touch with his because they've always been really toxic. He made the decision to cut ties with them for his own peace of mind, and I totally support that. So the only real family we have is mine. Even though my family is supportive and loving, we're still waiting to tell them. Another reason I've been holding off on announcing my pregnancy is because this week was my younger sister Brooke's baby shower. Brooke is also pregnant with her first child, and just like us, she's thrilled at the idea of being a mom. It's been wonderful to see her so happy, and it's clear that this is a very special moment for her. My parents are excited too, since this will be their first grandchild. Everyone had been focused on Brooke's pregnancy, and honestly, I didn't want to steal any of her spotlight. Brooke can be a bit sensitive about attention, and I completely understand that. She's always liked her moments to be celebrated without any distractions, and this baby shower was one of those moments. If it was important for her, I could keep my news under wraps for a while and reveal it later. It wouldn't hurt to wait, especially given what I mentioned earlier. For the shower, Brooke trusted me to plan the whole event. She gave me the responsibility of creating something specifically for her, sharing countless Pinterest boards, photos, and ideas for the themes and decorations she wanted. It was clear she had a dream for her baby shower, and I was determined to make it come true for her. I had some ideas that were tough to pull off in reality, but since she's my sister I put in the extra work. It took a lot of time, effort, and energy, but I didn't mind. When the big day arrived, I was there early because there were still a few details to sort out, and I wanted to make sure nothing was out of place. I was running around because I don't have a ton of experience with these things, so I made up for it with hard work. I was exhausted, but I love doing nice things for people I care about. If she came in and found the party of her dreams, all the hard work would have been worth it. And it definitely paid off, because when she arrived and saw everything, she was really happy with how I set up the place. It was exactly like the Pinterest photos she'd shared with me. She couldn't stop praising how perfect everything was, so everything had gone just right. Plus, I felt good about doing something I'd never done perfectly on the first try. Up to that point, everything was perfect. The guests were having a great time, everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves, and there wasn't a single fire to put out. My mom arrived shortly after and pulled me aside to thank me. She told me how much she appreciated the effort I'd put into making this day amazing for Brooke. I'd also planned some fun games, and soon everyone was laughing and having a good time. Everything was going well and the focus was completely on Brooke, just as she'd wanted. Then, Claudia arrived. Claudia is my sister's best friend and they've been close since they were kids. Although Brooke adores her, the truth is Claudia and I have never gotten along. From my perspective, Claudia is the kind of person who travels with a cloud of drama around her. She's one of those people who always needs to have the last word in an argument, speaks loudly when she argues, insists she's always right, and has a penchant for drama. I've always tried to avoid her because that usually prevents a lot of the drama that comes with her. Since this was my sister's baby shower, I really had no choice but to invite her. The first thing she said when she entered was a disparaging comment about how cheesy the party's theme was. For her, she would have done a much better job planning the event. I bit my lip, trying to keep my cool, and looked at my sister to see her reaction. To my surprise, Brooke simply ignored Claudia's comments, smiling and happily greeting her. That could have been just that one comment, but with Claudia, the drama doesn't stop there. Throughout the afternoon, she kept making passive-aggressive remarks toward me, even in front of other guests. Every chance she got, she said that the planning wasn't the best. Everyone else seemed happy with what I had organized, especially my sister and my mom, but Claudia obviously wasn't. Still, I kept quiet for Brooke's sake. But if you know someone like Claudia, you know that one person isn't enough. At one point, she came over and made a sarcastic comment about the catering, suggesting that I should have hired a more expensive caterer instead of someone who, according to her, she had found on the street. I calmly replied that the caterer I chose was very well known and highly recommended. Besides, everyone at the party seemed to love the food, so I couldn't understand why she felt the need to complain. Then came the most absurd part. She argued that the food was too greasy for her taste, even as she was still eating it. That's when I lost my patience. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "Well, if you think it's so greasy and bad, maybe you should stop eating it." I pointed out, loud enough for everyone to hear, that I'd already seen her finish 2 full plates and now she was on her 3rd. So if the food wasn't up to par, why was she still eating? The only thing overly greasy here was her. That left her speechless and she walked away, red with embarrassment. Later, it was time to open Brooke's gifts. And that's when Claudia needed to ruin things again because she just couldn't stand to see happy people doing something. She raised her glass forcefully, drawing everyone's attention, and announced that she wanted to give a speech. At first, she talked about Brooke, how excited she was to meet the baby and how much she valued their friendship. But then, without missing a beat, she added, "I wish it had been me organizing this party instead of your childless sister." Claudia was still stuck on what she'd said, and her way of attacking me hit a very sensitive spot. I might have provoked her, but she's a compulsive drama queen who only does things to complain. I gave Claudia a look, silently asking her to drop it, trying to keep my cool, but then she went even further. Claudia smirked mockingly and said, "But you know, Brooke, I understand why you let your sister organize all this. I mean, this is probably the closest she'll ever get to having a baby shower, with all her fertility issues and everything." I was stunned, watching her giggle and look at me with clear satisfaction. I couldn't stay silent any longer. I asked Claudia directly, "What do you mean by fertility issues?" She feigned surprise, acting like she didn't know, and replied, "Oh, didn't you know this was supposed to be a secret? You weren't meant to say anything." She went on to say that Brooke had told her everything about how you can't have a baby and how I even had a miscarriage. I assumed everyone else already knew. I stood up, trembling with anger and disbelief. I looked at Brooke, expecting at least my sister to say something in my defense. After all, she was my sister and she knew that what Claudia was doing was wrong on so many levels. But to my shock and disappointment, Brooke completely avoided my gaze. She didn't say a word. Fortunately, my mom stepped in, trying to calm things down. She scolded Claudia, telling her she shouldn't say such stupid things, especially while drunk. But then, instead of fully supporting me, she turned to me and said, "Let it go, it's not that big of a deal." After spending so much time organizing everything, I was being humiliated and my family couldn't even defend me. Without another second, I turned around to grab my things. I just wanted to get out of there. As I grabbed my purse and coat, I announced loudly that I wasn't going to stay there another minute and that the baby shower could go on without me. Both Brooke and my mom tried to stop me immediately. My mom tried to convince me that I didn't have to leave, and Brooke ran after me, visibly upset, begging me to stay and saying that I was overreacting and making a scene over something that was meant as a joke. She kept defending Claudia, insisting that her best friend hadn't really meant what she said, that Claudia was just being Claudia. She begged me not to leave, saying I was making things awkward for everyone. I paused and looked at her, trying to keep my voice steady. I said, "Okay, I'll stay, but only if you kick Claudia out. I'm not going to be in the same room as that woman after what she just said to me." But instead of agreeing, Brooke hesitated. She seemed torn and then started to explain. Her excuse was, "I can't do that. Claudia is important to me. She's my best friend." I asked, even after what she just said to me, even after everything she said to humiliate me in front of everyone. Brooke just shrugged as if it was nothing. Then she said something I'll never forget. "It's not like Claudia lied, she just told the truth. You have fertility issues, you had a miscarriage, and you can't have kids. Why are you so upset? It's not like what she said isn't true." I managed to ask, "Are you serious?" Brooke didn't even flinch. She just looked at me and said, "You need to stop feeling so insecure about it and just accept it, it's your reality." That was worse than what Claudia had said, because it came from my own sister. I was already mad about what Claudia said. It was hurtful, but I knew I wouldn't have to see her again and that anger would fade. But my sister, that was completely different. I organized the party exactly as she wanted, with all the special touches she asked for, and this is how she repaid me. My instinct was to scream at her, to say the words that would shut her and Claudia up once and for all. "I'm pregnant, I'm going to have a baby," but I held back. I didn't want anyone to find out about my pregnancy in such a way, especially not in the middle of all this chaos. Instead, I took a deep breath and spoke calmly, "You and I are done." I reminded her of everything I had done for her before that day, how I moved heaven and earth to get her all the stupid things she wanted, even at the expense of my own free time and energy. And all of that was just so I could let myself be humiliated in front of everyone, and then be treated even worse. Before she could respond, I added, "I paid for half of the Catherine's bill, but as far as I'm concerned, you're covering the rest. I'm not paying another cent for your stupid baby shower." I could see she was regretting everything, because the Catherine's bill isn't something she can easily afford. She likes expensive things, but she rarely works hard enough to afford such a lifestyle. Since that day, my mom has been furious with me. Yes, with me. She isn't mad at my sister for what she did, but for what I did. It's not like she said, "You're the bad one," but it made it seem like I could have done something differently to prevent all this from escalating. She also told me that after the shower, Brooke didn't have enough money to cover the rest of the Catherine's bill and had to dip into her savings to pay it. I guess there's a nice lesson to be learned there. That's why my mom is pressuring me to make up with Brooke and pay the remaining part of the Catherine's bill. But every time my mom brings it up, I feel like I did the right thing. If Brooke wanted a party to humiliate me, at least she should pay for it, don't you think? I'm not willing to apologize, make up, or pay for any of it. It should be my sister who pays me back for all the effort. When you treat your family like garbage, you can't expect them to do favors for you. So, do you think I'm the bad guy for making her pay half of the Catherine's bill? I believe I am, but only for asking her to pay half, not the full cost of the party. Update 1. I'm using this update to clarify. My sister not only wanted me to organize the baby shower, but she also expected me to pay for the whole thing. She said that, as the older sister, it would be a sweet gesture to pay for it and show love and support for her future baby. What I heard was, "I can't afford all that Pinterest crap, so you, who can afford it, help me out, right?" I had already paid for half of the Catherine and was planning to cover the rest during the event. However, after everything that happened, I didn't want to spend another cent on her. I'm actually glad she had no choice but to use her own savings, and no, I'm not giving her that money back. As I said, if I decided to ask for the rest, I'd probably end up ruined since her savings are pretty limited. Since the party, Brooke and my mom have been trying to make me feel guilty so that I'd talk to them and have an adult conversation, as they put it, but I've been avoiding their calls. In fact, when my husband Jason found out about everything that went down at the party, he was absolutely furious. He couldn't believe how I was treated, not just by Claudia, but by my own sister and mom. He was so angry and wasn't about to sit back while someone disrespected me so openly. So, he found Claudia on Instagram and sent her a direct message, making it crystal clear what he thought of her behavior. He told her that if she had so much to say about a woman's struggles with fertility, especially without any proof, then he and I wouldn't hesitate to sue her for defamation. He made it clear that he wasn't like my mom or my sister, who just sat there while she humiliated me. And he didn't stop there. He said that if she had anything else to say about me, he'd be more than happy to meet her face to face to hear it. Apparently, his message must have really shaken Claudia. She replied with an apology, though it sounded pretty insincere. She tried to justify her actions by saying she couldn't remember much of what happened because she was so drunk. Claudia's apology means nothing, but seeing her back off out of fear has been worth it. Update 2. A month after everything from my first post happened, I officially cut ties with my family. You know how Brooke and my mom wouldn't let things cool off. I even told them they could start by giving me a genuine apology, although I wasn't planning on reimbursing my sister. My mom apologized, but it was a half apology that quickly turned into, "But Brooke did this," or "Brooke did that." Even as she was apologizing, she couldn't help but say that part of the blame was mine for leaving and humiliating Brooke in front of everyone. Yeah, that kind of apology, in quotes. Brooke, on the other hand, flat out refused to apologize in any way. She even tried to play the victim, insisting that she wasn't responsible for what her best friend said to me. She kept saying, "It's not my business." But I wasn't asking for an apology for her friend, I was asking for one for what she said afterward, though she had an excuse for that too. Then she went even further. Brooke started demanding money from me, saying I should reimburse her for the remaining costs of the Catherine that she had to cover. She used her baby as leverage to make me feel guilty, because I had made her spend money she planned to save for after the baby was born. Well, I don't care. I still stand by my decision not to give her a single cent. When I refused, she threatened me even more, insisting that if I didn't pay up, she wouldn't let me see her baby once it was born. I calmly told her I didn't care, I didn't want to see her or her kid anyway. So I cut her off and stopped talking to her. Then, yesterday, after days of silence, Brooke reached out to me using her husband's phone number. She sent me messages like nothing had ever happened between us. She asked if I'd be willing to babysit her baby once it was born because she'd have to go back to work. She explained that she and her husband had discussed it and that, with their budget, they couldn't afford a nanny. Plus, our mom refused to help, so Brooke expected me to step in. She even wrote that she was willing to let everything that had happened go if I agreed to help out and take care of her kid. I simply replied with one word, no. Brooke didn't take that well. Immediately, she started bombarding me with messages, calling me a miserable, worthless sister. She accused me of being sad and lonely, saying I should be grateful for the chance to babysit her baby, as if I owed her that. Keep in mind, Brooke still doesn't know that I'm pregnant. I haven't told anyone yet, not even my own family, and I feel like none of them deserve to know anything yet. My mom, as always, couldn't just stand aside and decided to get involved. She called me today, telling me that I needed to stop holding a grudge against Brooke, that Brooke wasn't to blame for what Claudia said that day. She went on and on about how we're still sisters and that Brooke is my family. She argued that by helping Brooke and her husband, I'd be doing them a huge favor after all that was provoked. I told her that if she was so concerned, she should be the one to help Brooke, because if she didn't like the idea, she was still her daughter. She said it wasn't the same because she'd already done the work of taking care of us, and now it was our turn to take care of each other. And to rub salt in the wound, she added that it would do me good to have some baby contact. That was the last straw. I ended up blocking her and any numbers my sister or mom might use to contact me. For example, my dad, who's been staying out of all of this. He hasn't shown much support, and honestly, I'm not even in the mood to talk to him anymore. At this point, I just want peace. I don't want anything to do with them. I'm so exhausted from all the drama. I need time away from it all to focus on myself. I just hope, for my own sanity, that after all this, they'll leave me alone. I don't want to hear any more of their nonsense. Update 3. It's been such a long time since I last posted an update here. For those of you who have been following my story, the most important news is that I gave birth to a beautiful daughter this week. And my husband and I are absolutely over the moon. She is truly the cutest little thing, and we're both completely in love with her. We never imagined we could love someone so much, but here's the proof. Now, for those wondering, I never officially announced my pregnancy to anyone. Since I cut ties with most of my family, no one knew I was pregnant or that I had given birth until this week, when I simply shared a photo of my daughter. I felt that was the right way to announce her arrival. As you can imagine, people got really excited when they saw my post. I've received countless congratulatory messages from my grandparents and distant relatives, all eager to meet my little one. It feels bad to have kept all this from them, but I didn't want my sister or my mom to bring any drama during my last few months of pregnancy. However, the most surprising part of all this was when my dad finally got in touch. He called me from his office phone and told me how shocked he was to learn I now had a baby, since he hadn't even known I was pregnant. I had to point out that he hadn't contacted me in all these months, so how was he supposed to know? It's not like I kept it a secret just to spite him. Simply put, no one was there to support me when I needed it, so I didn't feel the need to share anything with them. My dad was blocked, but when it mattered to him, he found a way to reach out, if it was convenient for him, that is. But when I was seen as an infertile woman who couldn't give him grandkids, he didn't have my number. Curious, isn't it? Then my dad went on to say that my mom, Brooke, and some other relatives were upset with me for keeping my pregnancy a secret. He said that at the end of the day, we're family and I should have shared such important news, no matter what had happened between us. I listened, but honestly, I wasn't interested in hearing it. I told him that he, my mom, and Brooke could feel however they wanted, but I wasn't going to listen to any of it. I asked him not to call me again unless he had something else to talk about, not my mom and not my sister. To be completely honest, I'm not mad at my family anymore, but I just don't want them in my life. I have more important things to focus on now, priorities that are worth far more than my parents' or my sister's hurt feelings. Update 4. You won't believe the latest twist, the irony of all ironies. My sister needed help with a babysitter because both she and her husband work, but they couldn't afford one. At least not a decent, qualified one. So they ended up hiring the worst babysitter in the world, Claudia. It wasn't like they were paying her, but since Claudia is a housewife, and not very good at it, by the way, she agreed to look after my nephew, who's now just over a year old. Up to that point, nothing seemed too bad. It was Claudia they should have asked for help, not me, and finally, they did. But Claudia had a habit of using Brooke's house like a hotel to meet up with her lover. At this point, I'm not even sure if there's more than one guy involved, but that doesn't really change the issue. The problem here is that instead of taking care of the child, she was in one of the rooms, taking care of a different kind of kid. A grown man with special needs, so to speak. Brooke's husband discovered this when he got to the house early, before Claudia was done with her extra babysitting duties. You might think, well, it's not that bad, they just fired her from her unpaid job and found a real babysitter. Maybe even Brooke has cut ties with Claudia and they're no longer friends. Well, think again, because Brooke knew about this. She was aware of her friend's infidelities and still defended her, even giving her a free place to carry them out. Now, if you're looking in the mirror and you have that surprised look on your face, imagine my brother-in-law's expression when he told Brooke what he saw earlier that day, and noticed that her face wasn't as shocked as yours might be right now. My brother-in-law even had a paternity test done on the baby, because his first thought was that Brooke was being unfaithful too, and at least the test didn't confirm that she was. Now he's asking for a divorce and full custody, because he knew that his wife's friend was hooking up with some guy in another room. Not only was she leaving the baby alone, but she was also letting strangers into the house and behaving inappropriately. Now my sister has moved in with our parents, and they're the ones taking care of her baby while the divorce and custody battle play out. I just want to say, Brooke, you have some really good friends, and you defend them well. It really says a lot about you. Edit. I almost forgot to update after more than a year of not posting, but I popped on Reddit, saw some notifications, and remembered to update. My brother-in-law has been granted full custody of the child, while my sister still lives with our parents. Now I just have one question for you all. Do you think I should send them a Pinterest board full of ideas on how to decorate your room in your parents' house after the divorce?